here's how this is going to work. I'm going to do a little interview format. I'm going to do my best Charlie Rose imitation or something like that, and lead you through some of the highlights of Roberto's career, and then we will open it up for questions. And I already know that many of you have them, but we'll probably hit some of that along the way. Let's start, I guess, early on. You grew up in Washington, D.C., right?
DC has a really, really incredible theater scene now. Even back then when I was a kid, it had a good theater scene, but it's really exploded. But that's where I first saw my first play. There was a theater on 14th Street, which you may or may not still be open, called the Source Theater. And they would do, this will tell you exactly how I got into theater. At midnight on Friday and Saturday nights, they would do like this campy live stage version of the old Adam West Batman show. Paula Vogel, who wrote How I Learned to Drive and all these other amazing plays, she's a terrific teacher. And she was in residence at Arena Stage, which is like the big regional theater in DC. And I was working at the Shakespeare Theater as the publicist, and Paula got the artistic director of Arena Stage to hold a boot camp for playwrights, inviting playwrights, the resident playwrights from all the theaters in DC to send their resident playwright and spend 2 weeks with Paula Vogel. So at the Shakespeare Theater, the artistic director got this letter, and he said, okay, well, our resident playwright is Shakespeare, and he's dead. But he had seen a couple of plays that I'd like thrown up in these, literally thrown up in these black box theaters, and he said, do you want to go? And I said, will you give me the 2 weeks off? And he said, yeah, take your vacation, go do this thing. So I took my vacation. And at the end of the boot camp, Paul Vogel said, you love this. If you want this to be your life, you should get serious about it. I met with these agents, and the last one I was meeting with is Howard. And the first two meetings were like a disaster. I mean, I thought this is never going to happen. And I thought, and there's no way David Mamet's agent is going to want to represent me. And I'm sitting in his office, and I noticed he's got all these framed book covers of Rosemary's Baby, from every different edition of Rosemary's Baby that's ever been published, like in Spanish and French. It's one of my favorite novels, and I think, this is weird. So I go into the office, and I sit down with Howard, and the first thing he says is, why are you wearing a coat and tie? And I said, well, he's like, I hope that's not for agent meetings. And I was like, no, I'm having lunch with my dad later. He's like, good, because never go out in a coat and tie. And I was like, okay. And so we started talking, and I said, what's with all the Rosemary's Baby posters? And he goes, oh, I represent Ira Levin, and we're all friends. And he's one of my favorite suspense writers. He did Rosemary's Baby and Stepford Wives, and I thought, I gotta work with this guy. If we want to do a tribute episode, we brainstormed that. Ryan Murphy, who created Glee, is very much the captain of that ship. He's like a visionary, and he'll say, I want to do an episode about this theme. And so then we'll all brainstorm on how different stories could fit in with this theme. He's a big believer in the show being about first crushes, first loves, first jobs, first whatever. So we'll figure out stories for that, and then we'll all bring in a list of songs we think might help tell that story, and then we kind of collaborate on the story like that. It's very, very collaborative.